Hey, Zach, can you hit that mic?
Exactly. We're going to have another resolution.
Call this meeting to order. Roll, please.
Showalter.
Present.
Myers.
Here.
Howard.
Here.
Redmond.
In attendance.
Thompson.
Present. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
You're so funny.
I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Good evening, everybody. We have some public hearings this morning, so we're going to start.
Mayor, I'd like to add, or request to add to the agenda,
Sure.
a third public hearing for the petition for de-annexation or exclusion of territory for the 2 lots out in the Goodland Energy Center.
Okay.
And then to have an action, to take action based on that later under form.
Okay. I believe we can handle that.
Since it was advertised as such.
Okay. So with that, we will open up the hearing at 5:02 p.m. regarding the unpit structure at 1526 Caldwell. Kent, if you want to speak to it, or Zach?
I would refer to Zach. We already had action taken regarding the yard. This is going to be action taken regarding the house.
There are lots of electrical issues, foundation issues, as well as the mic problem as well. There are multiple leaks through the roof, and the ceiling probably part of it collapsed. The occupant that was in there is in treatment, and the other resident on the structure in the city right now.
But none of those family members actually have any ownership of the property.
The current listed owner is deceased.
Okay. Anyone have anything they wish to add regarding this property? Okay, then we will close this hearing at 5:03 p.m. We'll be able to beat went to the next minute's past. Oh, good here. 5:04, we will open up the next hearing regarding an unfit structure at 000012th Street. Zach?
This just has an old shed on it that has been laid over for, I couldn't tell you how many years. It's right across the street from the playground at West Elementary School. And it would help that whole little section right there just look a lot better and cut down on the weed and snake problem.
Hey, did you get any kind of, I know the
Last year,
ownership was kind of a conglomerate of many people. Didn't know if you got any response out of anybody.
Last year I talked to one of them and he said he was the only one that was taking care of it and paying the taxes and he was done doing that. And I've had no response after mailing out letters or anything this time.
Okay. Do they have anything else they wish to add regarding this property? Okay, we will close the hearing for this property at 5:05 PM. As soon as the next minute passes, we will have another one. Okay, let's open up next hearing at 5:06 PM regarding the de-annexation of 2 lots out at the Goodland Energy Center. Okay,
Yeah, I'm getting to it from a previous agenda. Sorry.
that's okay.
This is regarding Goodland Energy Center, lots 17 and 18. The owner came in and completed a petition for de-annexation. We do not have any services currently out there as far as utility services. Water, sewer, or electric do not reach out to Goodland Energy Center. There are no plans to do so at this time, and we have not heard any comments or requests from any of the neighboring property owners or from anyone else for that matter.
Okay. Anybody have anything else you wish to add regarding this matter? Are you sure?
I'm sure, yeah.
Okay, then we will close this public hearing at 5:07 PM. Okay, moving on. We have nobody signed up for public comment this evening. Yes, we do. Come on up to the podium, introduce yourself, and let us know what's on your mind.
Good evening.
Evening.
I'm here representing the Goodland Gun Club.
Okay, and your
my
name?
name's Melvin Crow,
Yep.
and I'm the president of the Gun Club, amongst other things. I have a proposal. I've talked to Ken a little bit about it. We're wanting to expand our trap range up on the top section of our lease and add another range for us. We've had a nice donation of another trap machine, which will allow us to run our competitions that we have for 4-H, and this will open up a probability of doing some college shoots out there. And as far as our lease goes right now, the property that we have currently leased, it will add, I think it's about 20 yards to the north on our lease. It's not going to change very much. It'll be less mowing for the city and more mowing for us. But the fallout for that range with the design, I went ahead and had engineering from the college work up a blueprint. If you want to see the fallout and how it's going to set, I can let you guys look at this. And then it's also got a blueprint of what the trap house looks like. Fallout from that is going to be within the 2 fallouts from the ranges that we currently have. So nothing as far as the road or traffic is going to be changed as far as fallout and safety for the range. We did quite a bit of work to get it to fit in and fall out so that we would stay within that range. All the lead fallout will be in the same that it is currently. So, it was a nice donation from a private entity. They donated an $8,000 trap thrower so that our shooting programs can move forward. And the thought was nice, but the process takes a while.
Yeah,
So,
it does.
if you guys would like to see the blueprint on the fallout, I can.
Yeah, sure.
You guys,
The green one is the fallout from the new range. It won't be a full 27-yard trap range, it'll only be a 16-yard line range, because we don't need 3 of those, we just need 1 more range. Our 4-H competitions are getting big enough now that, you know, we're having over 100 shooters come to these competitions, so we need to expand just a little bit because of the popularity of the programs is growing. Basically, the trap house is going to be the same trap houses that we have currently. They're mandated by ATA. They have to be a certain size. The American Trap Association gives us a blueprint of size in order for it to be a legal competitive trap range. So trap houses are going to be the same there. It's going to be a little different design. We'll have a rollback lid on it instead of a climb down in a hole process to get in there. I'm not liking that. We're going to change our other ones to rollback lids too, because it's not easy hauling all that rock down in there.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll have a rollback top on it instead of a solid concrete lid. So other than that, if you guys are okay with approving that and letting us expand our lease to the north a little bit to incorporate this range, I would like to get started on that in the very near future so that we can have that available for this fall for our leagues to shoot on. But if you have any questions, I'm open.
Yeah. I mean, you guys are very active out there these days, and that's good to see. I
Yes,
mean,
it is.
There won't be any, with the way the public hearing works, is there's not any kind of decisions or anything made on a public hearing, but I think it's something we can probably, public comment, sorry. Maybe it's something we can look at, come next meeting, we can take a look at the lease and maybe have a little further discussion next meeting, but
Okay.
We can probably talk in between meetings
Sure.
as far as the actual lease agreement.
Okay.
okay.
Thank
Good
you.
enough? All right.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Melvin.
Bill. Anybody else signed up for public comment? Okay, we'll move on to consent agenda. We have A, the 6/17/24 commission meeting minutes, and B, the appropriation ordinances 2024-13, 2024-13A, and 2024-P13. Anybody have any questions, comments, concerns on those?
I move that we approve the consent agenda items A and B.
I have a motion by Commissioner Rutland,
Second.
second by Commissioner Myers. Any further discussion? Roll, please.
Howard,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Redling,
Yes.
Showalter,
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes. Okay. Moving on to presentations, we do have our annual audit report. Welcome.
Hello, I'm Harold Mays from Agler and Gaddard, one of the members of the team that came out to do the audit. If we turn to the first page, past the table of contents of the independent auditor's report. Here we indicate that we're doing the audit for the city. It is not in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles because you opt out of that at a statutory basis. We have to tell you you're not to work with that. However, we do feel that based upon the regulatory basis of accounting that you opted into, that the financial statements are fairly presented. You talk about management responsibility for the financial statements, making sure that the financial statements information is correct and fairly stated. Our responsibility is to exercise professional judgment while doing the audit, identify and assess the risk of the material in the statement on the financial statements, obtain an understanding of internal controls, evaluate the appropriateness of accounting principles, and conclude that the city can continue to go at least for one more year. Actually, we know you're going to go further than that, but that's what this part of it says. We do have quite a bit of information past in the footnotes, and our report on it is that supplemental information is fairly presented in accordance with general in accordance with statutory basis of the county. It also says that you're in accordance with the uniform, basically the uniform federal regulations regarding federal awards. Based on that, we have to give you an opinion on governmental auditing standards, which down at the bottom of that page, all we're telling you is that there is a report there. It is in the back, and we'll go over it when we see it. Then we also have to look at the prior year comparative information within the supplemental information. And we indicate that it is in accordance with that regulatory basis, that we feel that it is fairly stated in accordance with that regulatory basis. Then we get into the actual financial statements on page 4 and 5. The general fund, we go from, basically this is showing you in basically a summary form of what's happened with each one of the funds. The general fund went from $750,000 unencumbered to $596,000, so roughly a drop of about $104,000 from the year before. Your special purpose funds actually went up about $1 million. Most of that's in the municipal equipment reserve and in the capital improvement reserve, which had transfers in of about $1.1 million, which is the reason why special revenue funds overall went up. Bond and interest went up some. Your taxes collected ended up being more than what the payments on bonds were, so that's why it went up slightly. Then we get into capital projects, and you're going to see one in there. The third one down, the airport improvement, actually shows a negative cash of $1,528,000. What we have to do is we have to encumber the contract, the whole contract even though it's all done. Okay? And then as grant funds come in, they're only recorded when they actually hit the bank. So that's the reason it looks negative. Normally that would be a statutory violation, but because it's funded by grants, it's not a statutory violation. Okay. Other than that, you had some other federal money in the ARPA projects, and it was about $290,000 was expended there. So overall, it went from $250,000 to a negative $627,000. Again, you have grant money coming in to cover that. Your utility funds, electricity was up, water was down slightly, sewer was up slightly, or up some, and then the solid waste was down. So we had a couple that went down, that went up. The couple that went down had also transfers in them to other funds, which was part of the reason they got decreased. Generally speaking, what I look at for utility funds is do we have enough unencumbered cash still on hand to cover about 3 months operations. And you do in the water fund, you're a little shy of that in the solid waste. What that means is that, if this trend continues, at some point in time, you're going to look at but again, that's also dependent on whether you continue to make transfers each year at the rate that you have been. So that's the other part of that. Page 6 and 7, we have unencumbered cash at the beginning of $11,000,007, and we have unencumbered cash at the end of $12,000,001. So basically up about $400,000. In that range anyway. And cash balance sitting at $13,000,007, which is consisting of checking of the balances. The municipal court is kind of a separate fund, so we show it separately. So we have $14,041,000 in cash. Part of that's due to agency funds, 253, so that brings us back to what is your share, i.e. of above $13,788. The only difference in that would be that the trust funds under the municipal endowment and law enforcement actually, they're there, you're overseeing them, but it's not different. Okay? We have footnotes. I'm not going to get too much into those. Page 11, just in case you read this and wonder later on what's going on, is the defined benefit plan, the CAPERS plan. And again, just like I've told you in prior years, the state estimates what your share of the pot is for the liability of the papers, and yours is $2,293,000. That's not shown in the financial numbers up front because it's a long-term thing. It's gonna, I mean, they basically tried to guess at what a person's gonna retire, how long they're gonna live, and how much they're gonna pay. So obviously, even if they were correct, it's over a number of years that these payments are being paid, not just over the next year. Pages 12 and 13, you get to look at your debt. You went from $4,495,000 with payments of $445,000, bringing you down to $4,050,000. And then it shows you what's due over the next several years. And increments of 1 for the first 5 years, and then increments of 5 after the 5 years. On page 17, we have your comparison to budget. And basically what you're looking for here is anything that does not have a bracket in that last column to the right. And all of yours have brackets or they're zero, which means that you're basically on your budgets, there's still a statutory violation. That's the whole idea behind this page, is just to state real quick to see if you have a statutory violation. General fund, I'm not going to go into too many of the other funds, but general fund, just to kind of take a look at it. You can see that taxes weren't up that much compared to the year before. $1,889,000 compared to $1,862,000. Your intergovernmental, slight decrease. Licenses, fees and permits, about $50,000 increase. Charges for services up just a little. Fines and forfeitures, virtually the same. Use of money, interest, the nice thing for this year. Finally got rates that are up there to where the money you do have in the bank is earning something. So we made about $19,000 off of those compared to the previous years. When you get to the total receipts, we're looking at $3,259,000 compared to $3,171,000. So again, up some, but not huge amount. On the expenditure side, I think most of them went up slightly, except for airport, van transportation, cemeteries, recreation, and economic development all went down slightly. So overall, our expenditures went from $3,200,000 the year before to $3,400,000 this year. So not quite, about $170,000 increase from the year before. As I mentioned on all these other funds, basically not huge increases or decreases, so pretty level until you get to the two municipal equipment reserve on page 32 and capital improvement reserve on page 33, and those are mainly due to the transfers in created debt and modified debt. After that, we talked already about the utility funds. So I think I'll turn back to page 55. You're required to have an audit for basically two reasons. The first one being that you're required by state statute to have it, but you're also required to have it because of your federal funding. Anytime that you're this last year, anytime you're over $750,000 in expenditures, you're required to have what they call a single audit, which is a compliance and a financial audit. Next year, that does go up to $1 million. So if you're under $1 million, you don't have to have a single audit done. But this year, you would still, you'd be over that this year, even though it was the $1 million for this year. So based on that, we have to do some testing, and as a result of that testing, we have to give you some opinions. On page 58, We're giving you an opinion based upon the governmental auditing standards that we looked at, in which case we're looking at internal controls in compliance with those laws and regulations. And we're stating that we did not find anything, which basically tells you that we didn't test everything. But based upon the fact that we didn't find anything, we feel that the financial statements are fairly stated in accordance with the laws and regulations based on that. Page 60, we actually get into more detail and hone in on particular grants. Now, you only have two, so we ended up looking at two of them. But if you had a multiple of them, small dollar amounts in some of them, we may not look at those as heavily as the bigger one. So because you had the two, we had to look pretty much at both of those anyway. So we're giving you opinion. When it says major federal programs, that means we looked at it in detail. So anytime we pick the program, it's a major program. And we feel that the compliance with those federal programs was appropriate and in accordance with the grant requirements, and therefore all fairly stated. And we did not find any deficiencies in control over those grant requirements. Page 62, another, basically, some kind of for the federal government. In addition to this, we also have a electronic we have to do yet to finish things up based upon this audit report. Now, at the very top it says adverse, but that your adverse opinion is in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. That we didn't do it. It's statutory basis. So we have an unmodified report or a good report in terms of regulatory basis. We have no material weaknesses, no significant deficiencies to report. And then we show down below the major program that we looked at, which is the airport improvements of $1,454,000. And we indicated this year, type A programs $750,000 more. Next year it's a million. Auditee qualified as low-risk auditee. Unfortunately, the federal government's taken the attitude that if you don't do a gap basis statement, you're never going to be able to, quote, qualify as a low-risk auditee. Now, if you qualify as a low-risk auditee in your scenario, it's not going to make any difference because you only have one or two programs. We have to look at an impact. But if you had a scenario where there's multiple programs, small dollar amounts, you don't have to look at the small programs as much. So that's what that means. So as long as your statutory basis, which I'm not proposing that you go to gap basis, that would be the only reason. Unfortunately, gap basis, I guess the thing I don't like about gap basis on a municipality is that you're basically recording all of your infrastructure. And that might be good to know what your infrastructure is, but it really isn't something you can go out and sell. I mean, it's not like you're going to sell the streets and the sewer lines and all of that type of thing. So really, this will give you a better picture of how you're operating and how you're going to have money to go forward. And you kind of get lost in that if you have all that other stuff added in. It really is nothing that you can do anything with to say if you have it. Okay? Any questions?
Any questions? I don't think so. It's good to hear another year of another positive audit report. So.
I gotta wait around here. It's not good. It's all I should say.
Yeah. Shouldn't be too horribly long. Okay, well, let's move on to ordinances and resolutions, starting with Resolution 1638 for the KDOT maintenance agreement. Ken?
We received this from the district engineer with Kansas Department of Transportation. Our old agreement is from 1981, which was included in your packet, along with the new agreement. There are very few changes from the old agreement to the current agreement. That doesn't mean that has a lot of clarity. Kent and I reviewed the agreement, and we attempted to talk with the district engineer, just to clarify a couple things, but this is their standard form that they give to municipalities, and there really isn't that much deviation that is allowed from that. So currently, as Ken pointed out again, we maintain a lot of the right-of-ways of the city connecting links, both K-27 and Highway 24. So both in terms of roadside, as far as the grass area just off the surface, and as far as the drainage goes. So but that's what we need, continue to have a continuing conversation with the district engineer and with KDOT in general. As far as this agreement goes, this is what's provided to municipalities, and staff recommends approval.
Do we have any questions or comments regarding this?
What's the impact if we don't approve it?
We do get some money from KDOT for these connecting links. It also allows us to apply for certain grants based on what is designated as connecting links. So those are the two main things. Is there anything different I'm missing, Kenton, or not?
Thank you.
So KDOT has a leverage point, we do not. Is the summary.
Like an accurate summary, thank you.
Any other questions?
Make a motion to approve resolution 1638.
A motion by Commissioner Redland,
Second.
second by Commissioner Showalter. Any other further discussion? Roll, please.
Showalter,
Yes.
Redland,
Yes.
Howard,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes. Okay, moving on to B, Resolution 1639 regarding the infrastructure at 000 West 12th Street.
And Zach put this resolution together. We had this is regarding the structure on West 12th Street as far as the shed. That is not really a shed at this point, it's just a bunch of lumber on the ground. So, and basically says that the owner is directed to commence the repair of such flat structure.
You have 30 days.
If it's not done, Zach and I have been discussing, it might be just easier for our city crews to pick up rather than actually send it out for bid, because it's just on the ground is all it is.
Yeah. Any questions on this one?
Make a motion to approve resolution 1639.
A motion by Commissioner Showalter,
Second.
second by Commissioner Myers. Any other further discussion? Roll, please.
Myers,
Yes.
Redland,
Yes.
Howard,
Yes.
Showalter,
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes. Okay, moving on. Ordinance for the de-annexation of the properties at the Energy Center.
That's formal actions.
That could be,
It can be here, okay, yeah.
that's where I notated it in on my agenda. Do we have an actual copy of said ordinance or just an ordinance number?
There it is, up on the screen.
Magic.
Or ordinance granting petition to de-annex property to the city of Goodland, Kansas, whereas Dwight and Judith Chipperfield, the owner of certain property described herein below, petition the city pursuant to KSA 12504 et sec to de-annex their property from the corporate boundaries of the city of Goodland, Kansas, and whereas in accordance with KSA 12504A, the city commission designated that the public hearing on the annexation petition was to be conducted in a city commission meeting, and whereas the notice of public hearing on the petition for de-annexation was published in the official city newspaper, and the public hearing was held on July 1st, 2024, all in accordance with the requirements of KSA 12504 et sec. And whereas on July 1st, 2024, the city commission considered the de-annexation petition, found no objections, and hereby enacts this ordinance, all in accordance with the requirements of KSA 12504 et sec. Being ordained by the governing body, and then basically its findings, stating that there will be no private rights injured or endangered by such exclusion of land from the corporate boundaries of the city. In section 2, the city commission hereby grants said petition and the following described property is hereby de-annexed from the corporate boundaries of the city of Goodland, which is Goodland Energy Center Lot 17 and Goodland Energy Center Lot 18. And that will be recorded with the Sherman County Register of Deeds. I think that's it.
You can.
Yep, well read. Thank you, sir. All right, does anybody have any questions, comments, concerns about this ordinance?
What was the ordinance number again, Josh, up at the top?
717.
I move that we approve ordinance 1778.
A motion by Commissioner Howard and a second by Commissioner Showalter. Any other further discussion? Roll, please.
Howard.
Yes.
Redlin.
Yes.
Myers.
Yes.
Showalter.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes. And we are not going to have any kind of a resolution regarding the property at 1526 Caldwell, am I correct? Okay. Moving on to formal actions, we have A, the acceptance of the 2023 audit report. I will make a motion that we approve the 2023 audit report.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Redlin. Any further discussion?
Just want to thank Harold for all his work. Appreciate it.
Yep,
Thank you.
we do appreciate it, Harold. Roll, please.
Redlin.
Yes.
Howard.
Yes.
Myers.
Yes.
Showalter.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Yep, thank
you.
Have a good night. Okay, moving on to B, memorandum of understanding with Sherman 4Cs for the delayed purchase of property. Okay.
This is a memorandum of understanding, which states the city will hold the property for a period of 2 years and not sell the property until Sherman 4Cs is able to obtain the grants and funding necessary for construction. And it gives a little bit of background information that a couple different presentations to the commission regarding this. City Attorney Kling reviewed the MOU and gave his approval to at least have the commission consider the MOU. David Blocklinger also sent him a copy of it as far as the board of Sherman 4Cs. They reviewed it and they agreed with the MOU.
Okay, so this is just basically saying that we will hold it for 2 years with the idea that we will sell it to them, but does not actually have any kind of terms of what such sale agreement would be. Correct.
Holding spots for availability. At the end of the day, you guys kind of have to do the rest of the deal, but again, you can't have them if they have the right funding and all that stuff, and so the purpose of that being appropriate for the community, given our site plan. Something totally different than, okay, all of a sudden the value of the property is higher than what it was 2 years ago, then that's a little bit of a difference. But now as far as the actual terms of any type of transaction, that would have to be formalized in a contract. And we building and get to get that money. Purely just upholding our promise, I guess, or our intent, so that they can pursue forward, try to get all their ducks in a row.
Perfect. Thank you, Jay. Any other questions or comments, concerns?
Motion to approve the MOU with 4Cs for the delayed purchase of the property.
A motion by Commissioner Showalter,
Second.
second by Commissioner Howard. Any further discussion? Roll, please.
Showalter,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Howard,
Yes.
Bradley,
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes. Okay, moving on to discussion items. We have a quiet zone for the railroad.
I had a query by citizens regarding the railroad, since we do have additional work in the railroad yard downtown. There is obviously, and then there's the rule for railroads that they have to blow their horn every time they approach an intersection. And there is an opportunity for a quiet zone. And the citizen said, well, other communities have done it. Why can't you just go do it? They can just declare it. And I go, well, I don't think it's that easy, but I'll check into it. And included in your packet some information, the brochure on it, and then also guidelines for creating a quiet zone. It does need to be a half-mile long. And then there are some safety measures that have to be in place, either in place or added to the intersection. At that time, then they can reduce the number of times that they have to. There's still noise that occurs, but it isn't as often, and it isn't every single time they cross the intersection. And what's happening now, because they have to, it's not with the trains that are going through, it's when they have to change tracks and everything else, it's almost every single evening now, where they have to blow their horn, whether they're either blocking the Cherry Avenue intersection or the Cattle Trail Avenue intersection. Either one, they have to blow their horn. And for the people that live close to that those intersections, I mean, I hear it in my residence sometimes. I don't know about you all, in your different places, if you hear it or not. Or you're just so used to it that you don't hear it at this point.
I'm used to it. 'Cause I even hear the one that's half mile east yet, when they come through there, so it's not a big deal for me, but.
You're right.
'Cause you hear the two irrigation wells running all day long and all day, night long too, so it's just noise of the farming community, in my opinion.
It is. I did check into, there's actually, but this was in 2016, so I don't know if any additional have been done. There's 5 quiet zones in Kansas, the whole state. 4 of them are near the Kansas City metro area. The other one is in Fort Scott, which is southeast Kansas, obviously. There aren't any others across the state. I did check with the Genesee and Wyoming Railroad. They stated they did not have any quiet zones on their tracks currently. You're welcome to make the application, but we'll let you know. That was the representative from Genesee, Wyoming. Basically said, we'll let you know that a community tried to get one approved, and it took them 4 years before they gave up. And then they gave up. So, before embarking on this process, I mean, staff really has not done any more investigation than that at this point, or what the Federal Railroad Administration, which is what you would actually have to get approval from in order to get the quiet zone approved. But, should staff spend additional time investigating this and seeing what are the possibilities of getting an application approved?
Any thoughts?
I guess my thought would be just in the interest of safety, that's not something that I'm interested in pursuing. I feel like if a train needs to go through the intersection, they should probably blow their horn.
Yeah, and I think there are additional safety measures that we would have to put in place to bring better attention to the intersection when they're coming through, if we were to move forward with this. But, yeah, I mean, I just kind of agree that I feel like, especially right now, where there are times when it's a little annoying, but it's pretty short-lived, and it goes by pretty quick. But, you know, maybe if there's a time where, you know, you get a lot of businesses built up out at the industrial park and there's a lot more train traffic moving through all the time, maybe that would be a time where it'd be worth revisiting, but I feel like we're a long ways from that point. But I don't personally see a need to pursue this at this time.
I don't either. I agree.
Okay. That's what I needed to know.
Okay. Okay, moving on. B, water conservation measures.
It is a hot, dry year so far in the city of Goodland. Neil has informed, you know, we have a data count. We're already have pumped 2.8 million gallons last week on one day. I don't know if we've exceeded that in the last couple of days or not.
No, it's dropped off a little bit, and we actually shut down first time during the day.
We had for about a week where the water treatment plant did not shut down at all because I was trying to keep up.
Yeah.
So, normally we hit this spot in late July, early August. Obviously, you know, we're hitting it earlier this year. And I just included the process, the procedures that are in the city code for water conservation. We did implement Water Watch a couple of years ago when we had 2 or 3 wells down at the same time, and we kept that, and that was basically voluntary water conservation measures. I do encourage and highly encourage people to watch their watering so it is effective. Don't water in the middle of the afternoon if you can absolutely help it. You know, that those hours from noon to 6, that's takes so much more water to achieve the same effect. And if you're having to use more water to achieve the same effect, that's why we have to pump more. And we don't want to be in a situation like other communities in western Kansas where they start having issues. We certainly don't want that. We don't currently have issues except for well 5, and that's getting addressed. And but I want to include this here, and if staff comes back to you at a future meeting with a recommendation, that's what it's there for. But for right now, it's just encourage conservation when you can. I know it's hot and dry, but there are good ways to water to use less water, and then it's less cost to you. And wanted to bring that to the commission's attention, but no recommendation at this point for any measures.
Okay.
Is that okay with the commission?
At this point, I believe so. Okay, well, let's move on to C, the 2025 budget, presentation of the utility and all electric funds.
We're going to start tonight with the electric fund, I believe. Go ahead and This is what we're gonna work on as far as our remaining funds, the objectives. We want secure reserves, as Harold stated, you know, in the audit report. They do show good things there as well. But we also want sustainable operations. You've noticed some of the projects we've had over the last couple, 3 years, pretty major infrastructure projects on some of this stuff. And it's getting to be big ticket items. Still want to invest in our staff, and we still want facility and infrastructure improvements if or when we can. And diversify the revenue base if we could. Go ahead, Joe. On the electric fund, which is in your budget book as far as underneath the electric tab. The revenues are kept basically at the same level. Obviously, with a hot June, we're gonna have increased revenues for this June compared to last June when it was so cool. But as far as budgeting for it, we can't budget one way or the other about it. So it's basically the same level unless rates change. Budget revenues is not significantly different from 2019. And they're actually less than 2014. So we've been very stable as far as what we budget for revenues. Rates for Goodland are amongst middle of the pack for the commercial, and then a little bit higher than average for residential, based on 1,000 kilowatt hours per month. Go to the next page. And you notice the sales and service collections, that's just what we receive. You can see a little bit up and down. 2023 went down at the end of that chart. I'm just really trying to have one idea per chart put on there. Since it was a cooler year into part of the summer, that's why the sales and service collections went down in 2023, especially compared to 22 and a couple years preceding. Go ahead, Josh. And then this is our cash balance in both the electric fund and the electric reserve fund. And you can see that all of them have gone down since 2014. There was a big drop off to about 2017, 18. And then it's just kind of stayed treading water at this point. The two bottom lines are the reserves in the regular fund and then what we set aside as the reserve. Reserve Fund 32. And then the two of them together is the top line. It's just over $1 million at this point. $1 million won't pay for a huge amount as far as either repairs or if something major goes down. The 7 Mile tie, we just got a bill for replacing 2 poles, which was around, what was the amount, Dustin?
I think the $22,000 bill.
So about 30,000, roughly.
30,000 for 2, and it's on, there's 100 poles on that line, so 99 actually. But yeah, that pretty quick. At 15 a pole, that's going to use up that $1 million pretty quick. You won't get to the end, and that's just one part of the whole system, let alone our substations or the main power plant or other things. So, go ahead to the next, Jeff. The production fund, we split the electric into 2 things. And you can turn your page to production, which you've had in your books. We were basically approximately the same in personnel and contractual. We had a insurance increased quite a bit, but, the other stuff over the last few years, insurance has increased. But the other stuff has stayed approximately the same. The commodities on the next page, it depends on what we need to use, what Dustin and his crews need to use to fix things and keep things operational and maintained. We're about the same, although actuals usually come in below that amount. But we budget $122,500. The transfers to the SURF are basically for roof replacement. And the transfers to the municipal equipment reserve fund is for switch gear for the 3-phase sub and IT basement. So that's for the production. Any questions regarding electric production? And then complete some actions, or again, the regular pages regarding our objectives and number of staff, funding, and then also what are our biggest challenges for the next 3 to 5 years. And what things are we doing to control costs? Go ahead to the next one, Josh. The other half of the electric department is distribution. Again, we keep personnel about the same amount. Contractual, there was an increase in insurance. In fact, enough that we went up to 110 insurance. That's basically the increase in that contractual services. There isn't too much else. The commodities, we have approximately the same, 245,000 versus 247,000. We do have some variance, but in 3 of the last 4 years, I went back another year, we were in the 220 to 240 range. But, 220 range. We did have that 1 year in 2022 with just 351. So. That's why these utility funds, if you don't spend it, it just kind of rolls right back into the fund. So that's the good thing about the utility funds. The bad thing is if it exceeds and you have a couple events that exceed, you got to have the reserves in place in order to handle that.
Yeah.
Because you can't take it from somewhere else. And as Dustin explains, almost every time he comes up and requests to purchase a big ticket item, those big ticket items are not going down. And they're definitely not 3 or 4% increase. So, the capital outlay is just, we replace old meters. And then the SURF, we did reduce it to 230,000, still building on the 7-mile tie-in and 7-mile tie-in in the South Loop. There is an additional 10,000 set aside for replacing a pedestrian crossing light on Caldwell at some point. Municipal equipment reserve fund, mainly to replace units 19 and unit 20. We're getting close on the amount needed for either one to purchase the next electric bucket truck, basically. Isn't that correct, Dustin? And then there's some explanation and then the readout on the contributions in the MRF, on the IRFs. So, I did include in the PowerPoint presentation some of the ways that Dustin and his crews are trying to mitigate expenses. They look at ways to control supply chain issues, whether through cooperation with other municipalities or through co-ops. We are in conversation to become a KVA member utility warehouse, possibly. That's a little bit whether, a lot of ifs, ands, or buts regarding that. The bucket trucks, which I just mentioned, the Unit 19, Unit 20, even if we ordered them, they probably wouldn't get here till 26 anyway. So, our current bucket trucks are in good operation, good maintained order at this point, but that's just something to keep in mind. It's not something you just order and then a month or two later it'll be here. So, any questions on the the biggest challenges I also had? It's getting tougher and tougher than it is with a number of our department heads. Tougher to manage the budget with supply chain issues. Orders are scheduled months and years instead of weeks. And we've heard this on a couple different events or purchases over the last year. It's harder to get new equipment at much higher cost. We haven't had to face lack of candidates for our staff, like other municipalities. I think we're very fortunate in that case. And then at some point, and probably fairly soon, we'll need to assess the benefit of additional power units in whatever category, whether that's natural gas generators, or with solar, or with both, or other areas, and our capacity credits for the amount of generation that we can do. But Oberlin just ended up their borrowing funds in order to, and they had 2 units or 3 units, 2 units installed in the city of Oberlin. Russell is having units installed. There's also in other small towns in Kansas that are also going to, because the way electric, it's become a market. So there are opportunities to earn money through these power units. And then there's also a much better guarantee that you will have power in the event something drops off. So it's it helps you, but it can also help you earn money on your contract. So that's why a lot of communities are looking at the possibility and actually going forward with it.
Ken, I had a question on page 65 under distribution. Said that capital outlay on that page is for replacement of meters, is that right?
Uh-huh.
You have that increase there from what was budgeted in 22-23 up into what we're at now. Are we needing to increase the speed at which we replace the meters? Is there a particular reason why it went up?
I think we actually budgeted 15,000 in those years, but it just depends on which meters are changed out in that particular year. And I don't know, about approximately how many meters do you change out per year, Dustin? Or I know it varies, but.
Is that just like an as time? Do you just have time and you just go do it, or just as needed?
With the price and how it's tougher getting meters, I just ordered 12 of them the other day, and you used to be able to get those meters for about $100. And we're probably being close to double that. Regular house meter 5 years ago was like $55, and it's $110. It's just, I was lucky that they had 17 meters in stock and I needed 12 more. And those are manuals, so try to keep some on stock, but it's, if they're on the shelf and you don't put them in, there's a battery shelf life and some other stuff that comes into play. So then you have to reprogram and stuff like that. Just having meters sitting there, and we try to, started this several years ago. If a meter's like 10 years old and we have to pull it for these issues, it's pretty much junk. It's paperwork, so capture what we need. So it's getting tougher and tougher to get meters, transformers, and everything.
What's the standard for how long a meter, what do they recommend, how many years until you change a meter? What's the recommendation?
So we've had requests to have meters tested because they think, oh, there's no way I'm using that much. We take a meter from like 2006 or 2012 and have it tested, and we test out at 99 or 100%. And then there's meters where we might get 3 or 4 years out of it. And when the issue comes, you have a lightning strike or something, and it'll take a brand new meter out. That just depends.
And we have about 2,600 meters in the system.
Yeah, that's I would say probably.
So if we change 50 a year, obviously that will take 52 years to change the entire system.
Fortunately, I did purchase 1 or 2 pallets of meters before all this price changing on residential. So we have quite a few residential meters. It's the commercial and industrial meters that's where we're relying. But yeah, I was fortunate to get the 12 meters that I did get. I actually got meters.
And usually as they get older, we're actually losing money because it's not recording the actual usage. So once the meter's replaced, that actually helps our revenue. So, but that's similar with water as well.
Thanks for the extra explanation.
Thank you.
Any other questions on those two parts? And then we have the commercial and general, which is basically the office or city hall. Our contributions, we have personnel involved, and it's basically the same amount. Contractual is quite a bit higher, but that's mainly the professional services, which is the software, which is the Tantalus software, which Josh and Mary have come to love. I'm actually being sarcastic, but it's getting better now, but it's still, that was the whole discussion about us. We changed that contract and we ended up going to the cloud with KVA and Tantalus. It was the same software, but it's through cloud and not through our own. And it's getting there, but we get to pay more for it at this time. So, and actually Shauna just completed a training that I think will help us even more get to a better spot with the software. So, the commodities is slightly reduced, and then there is a transfer to MRF on the second page, which isn't much different from prior years. It does have and this has higher in your books. I think I asked Mary to reduce that as far as the update. The decorations and the computer replacement remains but I think that's the same. I think it's just the decoration. And then there's some explanation, obviously, a couple pages. After we get through all that, there is a miscellaneous page, which is the transfer to the general, which $500,000 from electric is used to supplement the general fund. That helps keep property taxes lower, and obviously it comes from the electric fund. The compensating use tax is about the same. We budget 15,000, but it ends up 11, 12,000 range. And then we have the reserve, this is the utility reserve, which is at 32. On one of the first graphs, it had 15 and 32 on it. This is the 32, and we're just adding interest on the investments to the total there. And the monies borrowed from the electric reserve for the February 2021 weather event, that big bill that we received, 1.8 million, or whatever that total was. That payback will be complete this fall in 24. So there's an additional $8 charge on people's bills for that payback. So any questions on electric overall? We can move on and get wet with water. Oh, I guess I had one more page. Sorry about that. Well, I have a graph or two too. If operated with profit loss, proposed budget, the total receipts is just a bit above total expenditures for 23. That was due to less power purchase. But for 25, the receipts are budgeted just below expenditures without the cash balance, if we're not using the cash balance. And then I just have an example there regarding it, but it's a difference of about 300. Go ahead to the next one, Josh. And there you go, show you that those two lines kind of play tic-tac-toe with each other over the last 10 years. Total receipts and total expenditures over the last 10 years. And this is the actuals. And go to the next page, Josh. And then the budget, which shows through 25, and then that our expenditures is just above. That's the line on top right now. That's winning the race right now in the electric fund. But that's what's budgeted. Obviously, with a hot year, we're going to have more air conditioner use, more electric usage. The actual might end up where we make a little bit more, but I just wanted to point that out. We received information from KMEA, but it was just received this afternoon, a couple hours ago. So we ended up, have not been able to review it as yet, as far as on our rates. And then this just shows again, without the cash balance, the expenditures is over the total receipts in the electric fund. Just go on. Yeah, that's enough. On electric. Okay, let's move on to water. Make sure I'm on the right page. Revenues are about the same. We budget about 1.2 million. And the main thing, sales and service collections. We did have budgeted for $35,000 more in '23 than in '22, but we ended up, with that wet spring, our revised amount was about the same as the actual. 23 actually ended up below 22s. And then 24, we're there. We had budgeted 1.2, revised at 1.15. I don't know if that's with the hot and dry weather, if that's going to be accurate or not. And then we budgeted 1.2 for next year. Obviously, water revenues can vary. I think that'll leave that alone for right now. Go ahead, Joe. That's just our cash balance. The two bottom ones, the water reserve and our regular water fund. Water fund 21 is the regular and the 33 is the reserve. The total cash balance has had a little bit of a roller coaster ride over the last 10 years. We're back right out about 700,000 total. So, as far as our total reserves in water. Go ahead, Josh. Now we're on to water utility fund and production. Personnel costs has actually decreased just because of personnel changes, and then also we moved part of the superintendent to another part of it. Contractual is approximately the same. There's been an increase in chemicals. That will continue to increase. Neil keeps telling me about that. Capital improvements, there's none on the production side. And then we do put away money in the SURF. The transfers to set aside for include the water plant update, the water tower maintenance and painting, and to drill a well in Memory Park, or drill well, whether it's Memory Park or somewhere else, is included in that. That's what the transfers we set aside for. In the municipal equipment reserve fund, the MRF, it's just the IT backbone. And we do have 10,000 transferred to water reserve of 33. On the distribution side, go ahead to the next one. Personnel is about the same as what's listed in your budgets. I don't know why I have decreased on that. The contractual includes amount for tower maintenance and professional services, which is the 45,000 listed. And you notice on the two previous actuals, it has 56,900 on one, and then 26,000 in 23. So this is on page 77 of your books. Commodities have seen a very slight increase. As far as budgeted, sometimes we end up going over that, depending on what it takes to keep that system operation. And then you turn the page and you have the capital outlay at about 10,000. That can end up more just based on what we end up having to pay for as far as distribution, which is valves, fire hydrants, other things on the distribution side. The main thing we have a big line item on the transfer to SURF. That's because of the bond payment for the water project we did a few years ago. That bond payment is for 20 years, so it doesn't get done till 2036. But we're also setting aside for water line replacement. We do need to continue having those type of projects. The MRF is just basically to replace the Vectron, update Timberline Communications, and IT backbone. And there is a schedule of that bond payment in your books. And you notice we're not far enough along to.
Long ways to go.
Long ways to go. And then there's several explanation pages. We transfer from the waterfront, again, we transfer to general. And this is on page 83. We transfer 150,000 from the waterfront. We also have a clean water fee and a compensating use tax remittance. The clean water fee is required by the state, and it's on everybody's bill. The reserve for the water in the water reserve fund in 33 is getting close to 300,000, or just it's going to be over 300,000 at the end of 24. We're using some monies from here for the base grant manage for our project out in the industrial park. And then it shows here that that will occur in 24. Hoping that will be the case. So. Any questions? We have actions to mitigate expenses in the water. We have water rates had a slight increase in 22 after the previous change in 2015. The rate should be reviewed annually. We did ask KMEA. We do have continual maintenance on equipment. Equipment is obviously gets older. Water tower maintenance contract. We have a project in 24 which will be completed in the fall. We need to keep after it in future years, but there's big expenses with that, obviously. So, what, $250,000, $300,000 to repaint one of the tanks. So, that's much bigger than the contract we had for this year, which was in what, $75,000 range, somewhere in there. I think it was high 60s. We ended up at. And just a master plan. Simple. Just a master plan. We have new EPA, and the challenges we have over the next few years, new EPA lead and copper regulations require additional sampling beginning in 25. So all this lead and copper that now we get to sample and turn in those tests on a monthly basis. We don't have any lead parts to the mains, the water mains. They replaced all the lead goosenecks many years ago. But that doesn't mean that the lead from people's homes, if it's old water lines in their homes, some of that doesn't backfill into the main. That's what the testing's about, to make sure that it's not. We need to train staff for certifications required to meet state requirements. We actually had another employee pass the Class 1 exam, or got notice that they passed the Class 1 certification exam last week. They took the test a few weeks ago. You got what? They got his letter formally. We got it emailed last week. We got the actual letter tonight. Keeping crew in place is challenging. It's hard work. working on the water system, so. Get a plan in place to insert valves in the system, prevent shutting down a larger area than needed when working on water lines. At some point, if there's an opportunity, purchase well rights near city limits or build new well sites. And then resize raw water lines for water well expansion. We did make changes in the state water rights to reconfigure current wells, and that's actually helped our operations. Or Neil has said it's helped quite a bit because it changed the amount of water we could draw from two different wells and basically flip-flopped them. And it's worked out better because the one that has more water rights now actually produces better. So, rehab current wells on a continual basis. As you've heard, well 5 at the last couple meetings, that's come up. And it isn't just well 5, it's a number of them. And go ahead, Josh. We have 254 fire hydrants. If we replace 2 a year, it'd only take 127 years to replace all. Our oldest hydrant currently is a Corey fire hydrant at 8th and Walnut. That was made in 1948. So, we did complete the roof on the Memory Park standpipe. That was great. We're going to be reining in the roof of the power plant water tower in 24. But we do have a water project estimate to address the 2-inch water lines, the dead end water lines, and other water mains in the network that need to be addressed with new mains, additional valves, and other items. Problem with that is the project is multiple millions of dollars. Obviously, we aren't going to do that all at once, but we need to do something. And
In just the master plan.
and just master plan. So. And there's our actuals, receipts versus expenses without cash balance, and you can see they play tic-tac-toe over the last 10 years as far as our total receipts and total expenditures. And right now, the last couple of years, the expenditures are winning. This year, we might have more revenues because it's hot and dry. I'll just show another one where the actual receipts is the top one, the budgeted, we have below it. We kind of are conservative regarding how we budget our receipts because you just don't know. Our actuals end up above it. Okay. And that's just regarding water rates in general. I need some additional. Any questions about water before we hit sewer? We made it through clean water. Now we got to go to the dirty water. Sewer. We have a very conservative increase in budget, although the rate increase of 20 cents per month each year generates about $500 more per month. We do have a little bit of variation on seasonal basis, but not much. Go ahead. That just shows our collections in the sewer for the last 10 years. That's the blue line. And our cash balance has ended up down below 200, and we're kind of in that area. That's on the main sewer, regular sewer budget. Go ahead, Josh. Oh, I have one more. And then total cash balance between sewers 23 and 37. Let's just keep going because I'm not sure about that big drop off on the last year. Sorry about that. Okay, we also split the sewer into two parts. We have treatment and then we have collections. On the treatment, and we did switch people around, so the personnel is more than what it was. And we have the budget, we're on page 86 now. Contractual is about the same. Commodities. Equipment maintenance is the unknown. You can see on the actual on 22, we had 99,000. That was when we had that big repair at the treatment plant. Then it goes down. Capital improvements we set aside for cammering sewer mains, cleaning the headworks. And that's about it. We don't have anything going to SURF from the treatment plant portion of the sewer fund. And MRF is just the IT backbone. No tractor in 24. Go on to collection. Need to keep people around. Personnel services. Contractual services is about the same. Commodities is just a very minor change on the totals. And then there's none scheduled as far as capital improvements. But we do transfer money for lift station upgrades and sewer main lines into the SURF within the collection. And then there's pages on the summary of the sewer. For the sewer fund, we transfer $125,000 to general. Go on to the next page, Josh. And I'm just asking if that's appropriate. And then the transfer to electric C&G is 25 grand. So it actually supports part of the electric fund just because of the amount of electricity they use. The challenge is sewer's been neglected, additional maintenance needed on plant, lift stations, and mains. Right now, it's probably more the lift station and the mains than the plant. But as far as resources dedicated. You know, we had that lining project where we fixed a couple that were underneath buildings. There's other lines that would be helpful to use that as well. Help extend the life of the sewer mains. Jason, you went out and saw them when they were actually installing that. It's a pretty neat process how it ends up being done. The actions to mitigate expenses, we continue maintenance on equipment and facilities to keep large expenditures to a minimum. Sewer's not been the focus for a number of years, which resulted in unanticipated expenditures in 22. So, just going over that video inspection, repairs and lining. And we do have a minimal increase on the sewer rate, but I wouldn't say 20 cents. It's better than a kick. But we will take a look at it and I'll have some additional information regarding the sewer rate. Right now, we charge $15 as a base rate. So, go ahead, Josh. And go ahead. That's too much at this point. There's the total receipts and total expenditures. The receipts is the blue. It's below the red, and the red line's beating it. Go ahead, Josh. I think that's the only one. And with all the utilities, do we make cuts so that that gap between receipts and expenditures is better. Go back to even. You know, when we do have major projects with the sewer mains, it's hard to talk about the transfers to the SERB so that we can do some of those bigger projects. But that would help balance it as far as receipts and expenditures. Go ahead, Josh. Okay, on to something else besides the utilities. Although this ends up to be almost a utility, as far as the trash goes. Trash revenues are included in this budget as a status quo. We did have a jump a couple of years ago as far as their revenues. But it's status quo for next year, for 2025. And the expenditures is just a touch less than the total, and it's using up some of the cash balance in this one. That's where the question for the health and sanitation fund is at. We do support the general fund, again, the 40,000 through the trash. But you notice our expenditures in that fund on the very first page, it kind of showed that. On page 95, 601,000 in revenues, plus the cash balance of 58,000 gets us to 659. And then the expenditures is expected to be around 640. So that leaves us 19,000 going into 26. So we're using some of the cash balance there again.
Yeah. Which we're almost out of.
So that's it regarding trash. Now we're going to jump around. I'm not going to sing the song, but
If you did.
cemetery improvement, and I think that's in other budgeted funds. Which, 117 in your book. We have lot sales, which is a little bit less than 25. That's just a guess, really, regarding lot sales. But as far as expenses, there are set-asides for buffalo grass, herbicide, fence, and building improvements. That doesn't mean that it gets all used, but it can be used. You just set the authority to be used. We're set up a new transfer for land purchase using this fund instead of the general fund. It basically goes to transfer to the SERF, capital improvement. But that's the cemetery improvement fund. You turn the page, the law enforcement trust fund. Used to be revenues were drug forfeitures, vehicle impounds, proceeds from hosting regional training classes. That's basically gonna go away because there's been a court ruling that will severely limit the forfeitures and impounds and the money received by local governments. So this basically is gonna go away, except for our ability to host regional training classes. So it's going to be a limitation on law enforcement. But that's the main thing I wanted to point out with law enforcement fund. Go ahead to the next. VIN inspection, which is $123. We have a fee for VIN inspection per agreement with the state. Now the funds are entirely for city use. And we do pay for a few things, training and supplies, and a small portion for ammunition, police equipment. Very small. I mean, it's not a huge fund. You don't spend a huge amount, but we do account for it separately. Go ahead, Joe. The Muni Court Diversion Fund, which I passed that somewhere.
120.
120. The fees collected decreased a little bit. As far as the revised for 24, but we do purchase a few minor things from the municipal court out of that. And we're just setting the authority to purchase. Go ahead, Jeff. The next 3 slides are about the IRFs, which we've talked about all the way along about what's being transferred to the SURF and to the MERF. This provides it in one worksheet. Mary made it a smaller worksheet to test your eyes this year. Rather than having a fold-out page, which might become cumbersome. So it actually might be a good change. But if you can't read it, we can get you a bigger print. But this lists all the different items and the balances we have in them. And 2, 3, 4 times a year, there seems to be items we purchase out of it. Just like you authorized the street sweeper here just a couple meetings ago. There's been other items that you've authorized to purchase. Once they've received, we've set aside enough over several years. But if you have any specific questions on SURF or MERF or GERF, the Grant Improvement Reserve Fund, which we set aside the grant matches, just let us know. I won't try to go through it. There's too many things, and then we make changes to the transfers. That's one of the items that we reduce or eliminate in order to meet budget. So, go ahead, Josh. Go ahead, Josh. Go ahead, Josh. Now we go back to that area I was talking to you about, other budgeted funds. And we go to the Special Highway Fund, which is $121. Special Highway Fund is accounted for separately, that's why it's special. It's a gas tax, according to KSA 79-3425. It's our main source to chip and seal streets in Goodland. In 2024, we're using the cost share grant, or using this source to make the match for the Caldwell project, which will be coming up in September. August and September. In 25, we should be able to go back to chip and seal, as long as the match has been made. So, any question on Special Highway? Go ahead, Josh. Special parks is next, which is the next page. 2020, or 122. This is accounted for specially because the liquor tax, according to the state statute, KSA 7941A04. Half of it goes to the general fund on the liquor tax, half of it goes to special parks. We earn about $7,000 a year. Maybe a little bit more than that. We've used this a couple different times in the last couple years. Now we don't have as much, so we're not gonna, we don't even authorize, we just authorize the entire fund at this point, 9,000. But we're not looking for any big project right now. Because we did it for the Phillips Park irrigation. We also used it for the shade structure match. And then, yeah, it's been, so. That's special parks. There's not a huge amount through it, but it's a little bit. Go ahead, Josh. Non-budgeted, we get in your yellow tab, the ARPA project, 124. We don't have any new revenues. This was the America Rescue Plan Act of 2021. It needs to be obligated by the end of this year and spent by the end of 26. And we're basically using the remainder that we have left after we've done a couple projects as the city's match for the base grant in the industrial park. And that was approved by state officials. So. Any questions on ARPA? Okay. Then there's several minor things at the very end of your book. But the main questions for you all go back to the property tax. I don't have them listed here. We'll give you a full list for next meeting. This is basically just questions for deep thoughts. With Jack Handy. To meet the same ad valorem rate as the 24 budget, we got about $70,000 more in cuts to meet the same mill rate as last year. But it's a lot of cuts. To meet the projected R&R rate, there would have to be additional $33,000 on top of that $70,000. I wanted to confirm with Mary before the meeting, and I wasn't able to, but I think we're at between $350,000 and $400,000 worth of cuts so far. So, from the budget. Now, those are requests, but it doesn't mean that they weren't valid or valuable type stuff. It's just, what can we afford? So for staff, do we attempt to reach R&R? With inflation costs and supplies, contract projects, etc., and some additional employee costs, what would you want to do? And whether or not we try to reach the R&R rate of 49.374 mils. The regular rate is 50.1. And then two other numbers after that I should have that memorized, but it's like 0.8 of a mil to reach the R&R rate. But it's the same question as last year. Last year was a huge difference between the R&R rate and the rate, to say. But do we send the request to have a hearing notice? That's going to be the question in the next meeting, because the next meeting is the last meeting, regular meeting, unless you want to have a special work session. Last time we'll meet on a regular basis before it needs to be sent to the county clerk. So that's what staff needs. And we don't need an answer tonight, absolutely, just, we'll need it at next meeting. But as we prepare for that meeting, it'd be good to have some feedback from you.
I guess my thoughts, and this kind of become my thought process every year regarding the R&R rate, that regardless of whether or not we end up deciding to try to meet that rate, it's kind of in our best interest, I feel, to go ahead and have the hearing, regardless. It just kind of cover our bases doing that. I mean, I don't think there's any negative reason to have the hearing, regardless of if we think we're gonna meet that or not at this point. But that's just kind of how I feel personally about it.
I know that's a lot smaller number than what we presented last time to be able to reach. But when I give you a list of a lot of cuts, it is somewhat painful to do. So even though 70,000 doesn't seem like that far to go, it's not wants, it's needs. Where do we do? And I'm kind of saying that for public consumption as well. I was thinking, well, that's out of a $15 million budget, 70,000 is nothing. Well, our budget with the IRFs and everything, we almost end up counting, because we got the transfers into the IRFs, you almost count it twice. It's not that amount, but it is tough, but those are the tough decisions we need to make. And if there's anything that the commission thinks is not a good idea, and we'll try to get that list of all the budget information to you early for next meeting, so that you'll have more, additional time to look at it. I mean, you've had it for 3 weeks now or so, as far as the books. But if there's something that you think that has gone too far, please advise. Please let us know. This is the time to make changes. And it's up to the commission. And unless we hear differently, we will keep trying to make it to that, at least the same level as last year, unless you guys give us different direction.
And we're okay with getting kind of a more firm direction by next meeting? Or do you need something sooner? I mean, idealistically, you'd already have good something direction, I know. But.
Well, we haven't heard a lot from the commission up to this point, so.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I know some of the increases are, we're trying to improve wages a little more. I don't know exactly what dollar amount 3% across increase in wages comes to. I know that's part of it. Little increase in the health insurance cost is in there as well. But at the same time, a lot of the, like I said, cash balances on funds are depleting, and they, once those hit zero, we get in trouble in a hurry. Things. I mean, I think it's important that we keep you know, we want to keep our staff here and happy and working, you know, and a good, well-trained staff that's here for an extended period of time is a much better staff than bringing new people on constantly trying to train new to do the job. You know, in today's market, it's just more expensive to have employees. It just is. And I know that's an expense the last 2 or 3 years that is added into that budget every year as well that we're dealing with, but I think that's important. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, I don't, like I said, upon just kind of looking through things, there's not a whole lot in there that can be cut, that can be cut more, you know, but the only thing would be, you know, money set aside for future vehicles and, you know, stuff in the MRF would be kind of the only thing to really look at to cut more, if we wanted to cut more, I think. Then that also gets you to a point where, you know, if you don't have funds available to replace or repair said equipment, what happens when that equipment fails? You know. Now, I do think it's important that by the end of the year, hopefully by the end of the year, we have had a chance to kind of go over all of our utility rates and determine if it's important enough for us to make increases in rates, which, you know, never makes people happy. But, you know, as we see and we get presented very clearly and plain as day, you know, we're not wasting any money. If anything, we are under budgeting for things that need to be taken care of. And, you know, we can either continue to do so and then roll the dice and hope we just keep going through year after year, or at some point in time, we're gonna have to bite the bullet and, you know, raise some rates for some things, whether it be, you know, property tax or utility rates or whatever we need to do to bring the monies in to make things a little less stressful on everybody to be able to do their jobs properly. So there, I just said a whole lot of stuff without making any kind of firm decisions. But I mean, that's just kind of how I feel. I mean, I feel like I will probably be more in favor of finding some way to raise rates to get at very least to what the budget is presented if necessary, you know, and if we need to look at some of the other things that were cut out that we feel is also important, you know, maybe even a little beyond. But, which isn't fun to do and nobody likes to do that, but it's also important that we take care of the city, the infrastructure and the projects and everything that needs to be done on a daily basis, but also the employees that are doing that work. So
I think when you mentioned that we're not talking about lists of wants, we're talking about lists of needs that, you know, in order to get down to that R&R rate, we'd have to cut the needs, which means we would be cutting services, and I'm not prepared to have a conversation that includes the idea that we would try to reduce services here. I think the citizens have come to expect the level of service that they're getting right now. Mm-hmm. And if that's going to cost a little bit more, then that's going to cost more money. It's not an easy decision to make, but insurance is expensive, and we have things that we have to have.
on that difference, the $77,000 difference that we're trying to make up from tonight's presentation. In mills, what does that figure to be? About 2 mils? A little under 2 mils?
A little under 2, because the mill generates 42,000.
So I don't know if it might be just a thought I'm running through my mind. Again, not final thoughts or anything, but you know, if we were to try to use the mill levy to make up that difference for this current budget, but then we could also look at utility rates and stuff this year that could also for increases for future budgets, where then we could then maybe decrease that mill back down if necessary. Yeah, I don't know. Just
I would certainly
thinking
like
out
to
loud.
get into a position too where we could stop taking money from the reserve funds to try to prop up the general fund. I feel like we robbed Peter a little bit to pay Paul, and I think it gets people used to being able to have that kind of crutch there to help us along, when realistically we need to be increasing the mill levy to try to prop that up and take care of it.
And I think another important aspect of the budget, we have, especially the last 2 or 3 years, we have pushed really hard to find grants to do projects, and you guys have done a fantastic job of doing that. We have got a lot of projects done with a lot of grant money, but our share of that grant money is disappearing real fast. So, moving forward, we find more projects that we want to try to do. We got to have our share there to be able to do that too, or else we won't be doing any more projects like that.
My opinion, I mean, Kent said we've already cut, what, 350,000 out of the budget, staff has. I think we need to find a way to keep the other 70 in there, to keep services as they are for the patrons of the city of Goodland. It's something that nobody ever wants to hear, rates going up or the mill levy going up. But to a point, it is what it is anymore. Everything's gone up. If you want good services, you gotta pay for good services.
Agreed.
Well, what staff can do is present you different options next time. So it's not gonna be just one recommendation. One, meeting that mill levy from last year. So people can see what it really is, but then give you a couple other options, examples. And then, like I said, to have that list of, the department heads have put in different requests, and this is what we've changed. To let you know. Mary's been very good, and every time I say, do this or do that, and she's kept a list of that, so. And we keep trying to work it to get it down, so.
Any other comments regarding this section of the budget presentation?
Okay,
Thank you, Kent.
we'll work it.
Okay. Well, with that, let's move on to reports, starting with our city manager, Kent.
Well, the manager memos included, also the fund balance, or the month-end fund balance report is included as well within the budget. We do have some follow-up. One was we had it on the agenda, but we asked you to table it as far as ordinance 1776 regarding ADUs. Right now, we're working to change that recommended ordinance to include a lot more definitions than just ADUs. So you'll have multiple definitions, and there's gonna be a delay, because we'll end up having to take it to the planning commission again and have them recommend a revised ordinance. So that's basically what's happening at this point with that. The reminder, next week, next Monday, joint meeting with the county commission, and basically discussing the Wallach building,
Regular time?
6 o'clock.
6.
Make sure everybody can be there.
And that will be at the Wallach building?
Yes. Ken, could I impress upon you to give an update on the Highway 24 and Cherry project?
Yep.
Evening.
I don't know if you guys noticed, it's sitting out there, just sitting in here right now. But, last Wednesday, we finished our last pour and, everything, saw cut. And we also got everything white, all joints cut and widened out and sealed. And also power washed over painting. Got all the stripe painted on, crosswalk painted up, so just kind of sitting out there. We'll have it opened up. Plan on Wednesday after lunch, we'll get all opened up.
Cool.
Sounds good.
Yeah, it looks good. Thank you guys for all your hard work.
Definitely.
And it took more than just the street department, and appreciate all the other departments that came out and helped, so.
And the nice cool days you had to work out there were,
We did have, the big long stretch, we did get it, we did for one half, of the 170 trucks, which, that was a nice cool day. We did split the other half up into two, so.
yeah.
Worked out really good.
Thank you.
And then, this is the item for, Zach was mentioning earlier, as far as 122 West 14th Street, our wonderful building across from Chambers Park.
I did put out the invitation for bids today. They will be open on the 15th. That way it can be presented that evening at the meeting. He did email me today, must have known there was a meeting. And he stated it would be done by the 20th, but I'm still just gonna put the bid out there. So if it's not done, we can just go ahead and move forward with it. He said their excavator broke and then their bobcat broke, so who knows which one it is. The reason why I didn't have anything for 1526 Caldwell yet is because I wanted to see if we were gonna have to pay for this first. Because it's more of a hazard than 1526 at the moment, so.
Are we running low on funds for that?
I just don't wanna overshoot myself. So I just wanna make sure there's gonna be enough there before I go full trigger on it.
Okay.
There's gonna be extra cost of 1526 removing the mice out of the house. That way when they tear it down, it doesn't spread them to the neighbors.
The neighbors would appreciate that.
I'm sure they would.
Just an FYI on the house on Caldwell, where there's so much drug use in there, the people who bid that need to be aware of that and should have water control on it so that dust does not spread to the neighboring houses.
And that'll be part of the bids that's on it as well.
All right. Thanks, Zach.
Thanks, Ed.
And Mayor, you had, wanted to go over, or wanted some information regarding fireworks to be relayed. One is, and the fire chief was tired of answering the question, but, even though there is a burn ban, there is no prohibition on fireworks at this point.
I mean, at least it's good that people are willing to ask the question. Not just assume.
Those are the ones not to worry about.
Yeah.
So he said that sometimes is an exercise in futility as far as prohibition on fireworks. There is no prohibition. The fireworks, according to our city code, are allowed to be lit on the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th. So they're not supposed to be lit until tomorrow, although there are some that have gone off.
Very few, though. I've been impressed with that.
It's not as many as, yeah. On the 2nd, 3rd, and 5th, the hours are from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. On the 4th, it's from 10 a.m. to 11:59 p.m. 1 minute before midnight. If it's at midnight, then Jason will give you a date.
Done, that's right.
And just a reminder, it's not within parks. Our park areas are not to be used for firework detonation. Also not on the sidewalk, streets, or alleys, although I'm sure they get done at some point. And please clean up any debris.
Yes.
But that's all I have from the fireworks ordinance.
Okay, thank you.
That's all I have in general.
Any questions for our city manager this evening?
We post those ordinances, firework ordinances on our social media.
Sure. Jeff says no.
Thank you for being proactive.
And we'll make it a little blurb to just regarding the second, third, fourth, and fifth, as far as hours and stuff, because
Yeah,
that'll make it easier for folks.
just hit the highlights, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, Kent. Okay, moving on to commissioner reports. We'll start down here on my left with Commissioner Redland.
There's nothing to report.
Commissioner Howard?
Just like to say thanks to all the city employees for all their hard work they do. The electric crew for coming out and actually changing a transformer for one of my rental houses at night when it was single phased, and the water crews for keeping us in clean water, and the city crews, the street crews for the new street and all the hard work they do, and everybody in the offices that do all the paperwork, and the police department for keeping the crime rates down as possible as they can, and everybody else that's in the city, just a big thanks.
All right. Commissioner Myers?
Nothing at this time.
Commissioner Showalter?
I just wanted to pass along that I had the opportunity a couple of weeks ago to meet with a couple of our lifeguards and talk to them a little bit about some concerns they have about the salary. And you know, it was a pretty enlightening conversation. I talked to them about some of the other things they deal with, other than just the life-saving activities is a big deal within itself. But dealing with disgruntled patrons at the front door, or cleaning up bodily fluids, it's all stuff that leads to it's just tough to keep good people if we don't pay them kind of what they are worth. So I just want to encourage my fellow commissioners to support a 2025 budget that includes an increase for our lifeguards.
Okay.
That's all I got.
Thank you. And for the mayor's report, I have nothing more to add. So I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Showalter,
Second.
second by Commissioner Howard. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everybody.